What's up guys, it is Offensive Seahawks fan back with another video. Today I'm giving you every team's NFL MVP for this year. Pretty self-explanatory, just going to go through every team and tell you who I think their most valuable player was on the year. Starting off with the Vikings, obviously Justin Jefferson. He had like almost 2,000 receiving yards, and he was the best receiver in the league this year. And he won Offensive Player of the Year. So that should be self-explanatory. Moving on to the Dallas Cowboys, Micah Parsons. He was like a finalist for Defensive Player of the Year. He's an absolute wrecking ball. He could play probably anywhere on defense if you ask him to. Moving on to the Saints. I'll say Chris Olave. He had an underrated season. I've heard like nothing talked about him. He's a great wide receiver. He played with 3 different quarterbacks this year and still threw up over 1,000 yards on that crappy Saints team. Moving on to the Niners, Nick Bosa. There we go. He was the Defensive Player of the Year, I'm pretty sure. So that should tell you why I think he's their MVP. He literally, like, he could go out there with like 10% effort and still throw up like 5 sacks in a game if he really wanted to. He's an absolute menace. Moving on to the Commanders, I'll say Terry McLaurin. He made it work with 2 different quarterbacks, and he worked with Carson Wentz for a lot of the year, who is horrible. He is not a good quarterback anymore. I'm sorry. Moving on to the Broncos. I'll just say their defense, I guess. Specifically, Pat Surtain. He's a top 5 corner. Can't convince me wrong. Just, that team was not that good this year for what they wanted to be. I'm sorry, guys. Moving on to the Texans. Another horrible team. I'll just say Dameon Pierce. He's a wrecking ball. He runs very hard. That's all I really gotta say. I don't watch the Texans at all, so I have no idea. Moving on to the Colts. Jonathan Taylor still, because that team is in shambles. Either him or Gilmore. One of those two. Jonathan Taylor was injured a lot this year. I think Gilmore was too. They're still good players. They got hammered with the injury bug this year. Moving on to the Jags, Trevor Lawrence. When you have a good coaching staff that believes in your team, specifically your quarterback, like Doug Peterson did, and he will for the foreseeable future, Trevor is going to be a top 10 quarterback. He took a massive leap this year. Went from the most interceptions last year to, I don't know how many he had this year. I know he didn't have the most, though. And he is going to be a great quarterback for years to come. We're finally seeing that generational talent he has in this league. Moving on to the Browns. Nick Chubb or Myles Garrett. You can't go wrong with either of them. But if I had to choose one, I'd say Nick Chubb. He's like top 3 in rushing this year. He is an absolute wrecking ball. It is hard to tackle him. He is a running back you want on your team. Moving on to the Cardinals. I'll say Kyler. He did not have that much to work with this year while Hopkins was out. And when Hopkins came back, he just said, F it, Hopkins is down there somewhere, hucked it to him, and he came down with it for touchdowns. And Kyler made it work with people like an old AJ Green, the like spirit of Robbie Anderson, Rondale Moore, Zach Ertz when he wasn't injured, the overrated James Conner, Because, yes, he is very overrated. That tight end, what is his name? Trey McBride. That's like all I can name on the Cardinals offense, and he made it work with that. Even though they have the 4th pick, he still made it work until he got injured. Moving on to the Raiders, Davante Adams. No, Josh Jacobs. Oh. One of those two. Josh Jacobs was the leading rusher this year, and Davante Adams is still Davante Adams, even without Aaron Rodgers. You can't go wrong with either of them, but I'm going to say Josh Jacobs because he was the leading rusher in the NFL. In a contract year, which he needs to be paid. Come on, Vegas. Moving on to the Ravens. Lamar. I've said it before, I'll say it again. When Lamar Jackson plays, the Ravens are a electric team. When they don't, they look absolutely clueless because they rely on Lamar's legs to help them generate offense. Like, I'm sorry, Ravens fans, if you don't like hearing that. That's the truth, and pay that man whatever he wants. Moving on to the Buccaneers. Yikes. I'll say Tom still. Yes, age was catching up to him this year, but he's still Tom Brady. Everyone was getting injured on that team. And that team just... When Bruce Arians left, everyone knew they were screwed. Todd Bowles is a terrible head coach. Why is he not fired? Moving on to the Chargers. Austin Eckler or Herbert. One of those two. Or Derwin. One of those three. I'll say Eckler. Even though he doesn't crack 1,000 rushing yards, he's an absolutely elite receiving back. He gets like a receiving touchdown every game, it's like. But if you do want to say Herbert, that's fine, because he made it work for a long time with Josh Palmer. Freaking... who was that other receiver? It was like Kellen something. I don't know, but he made it work with Josh Palmer as his receiver one for a while. Moving on to the Eagles, Jalen Hurts took an absolute massive leap this year. MVP finalist for sure. He's going to be amazing for years to come. He has the tools he needs pretty much. They just need to build a defense that can play good against top tier quarterbacks. Moving on to the Patriots. Ramondre Stevenson. That team's just really boring, and that was the first person that came to mind. Damian Harris is... I don't even think he did much this year. I didn't hear his name like once. Mac Jones, Bailey Zappi, they were pretty mediocre. They just need weapons. They need a lot. And, Matt Judon maybe. I don't know. I'll just say Stevenson. Moving on to the Rams. Oh, God. I'm still saying Cooper Kupp, even though he got injured in, week 11. He's still Cooper Kupp. He's gonna be comeback player of the year next year, most likely. I'm already saying he's still gonna be. And, you could say, the last 5 games of Cam Akers for their MVP, because he was awesome. Say Jalen Ramsey. I don't think he did that much. You could say Bobby Wagner. Even though he's not there anymore, please come home, Bobby. You could say Aaron Donald, even though I don't even think he did that much this year either. So I'm going to say Cooper Kupp still. Moving on to the Dolphins. Tyreek Hill. He was either him or Jefferson was the first in receiving, and the other one was second. I don't know who it was, but Tyreek Hill had 1,700 receiving yards. Yes, he probably hates that he left the Chiefs because they just won a Super Bowl, and he gets to work with Tua, who probably won't play anymore. I would encourage it, because the doctors don't care about his health. Moving on to the Bills, Josh Allen. He I think without Josh Allen, that team will not be as good. I don't know what my computer's doing. Without Josh Allen, that team wouldn't have the heart that it does and the desire to win until the playoffs, because they suck in the playoffs. Moving on to the Giants. Ooh, that is a great one. Do you want to say Daniel? Do you want to say Saquon? I'll say Saquon because he's back to his old self, and the people that wrote him off this year, where are they at? I have not heard a peep out of him in a while. Yes, I was one of those people. You could say Daniel Jones due to the lack of offensive talent he had to work with. I think Sterling Shepard tore his ACL. Darius Slayton, he's okay. I couldn't name a tight end that they have. They had Isaiah Hodgins, who he was actually pretty decent. He was above average this year, I'd say. And they have nothing else, really, besides him, besides Daniel, Saquon, Slayton, and Hodgins. I could be missing someone, but that is the only 4 people on their offense I can name that are actually good and relevant. Moving on to the Bengals. Joe Burrow, obviously. If you don't want to say him, say Jamar Chase. I'm pretty sure if you ask a Bengals fan, they'll be fine with saying Jamar or Joe. Joe, though, is the heart and soul of that team. When he has weapons around him, he's going to make it work. Moving on to the Jets. Garrett Wilson, Offensive Rookie of the Year. Why wouldn't you say that's your team's MVP? Or Sauce, because he was the Defensive Rookie of the Year. I'm going to say it's Garrett Wilson, though. Just like Olave, he played with 3 different quarterbacks. One of them was Zach Wilson, and he still got the ball and made it work. Moving on to the Steelers. He missed a lot of time, but I'm still gonna say T.J. Watt. He's just a menace on defense. He could win. No, I don't think he can win Comeback Player of the Year. But he's still T.J. Watt, regardless if he's injured or not. He will still always be T.J. Watt till the day he retires. That dude is a freak of nature. Moving on to the Falcons. Oh boy. Drake London, Tyler Algier, whatever his name is. Not Mariota. He's terrible. He needs to retire because no one wants him. I'll just say Drake or Algier. Algier had a quiet but really productive year, and I've not heard a single soul say anything about it. Moving on to the Panthers. Jesus. I'll say their defense, I guess. Brian Burns, Jeremy Chin, J.C. Horn. If you still want to say DJ Moore, you could still say DJ Moore, I guess. Moving on to the Chiefs. The legit MVP of this year, Patrick Mahomes. Next. Moving on to the Lions. Jared Goff or Jamal Williams, even though Williams is like a goal line merchant. That's why he had a lot of touchdowns this year, but he's a really good running back. He stole DeAndre Swift's job. I'm stuck between Goff and Jamal. Could say Hutchinson too if you wanted to. He was second for Defensive Rookie of the Year. That dude is gonna be good for years to come. And when Jameson Williams comes back, Jared Goff's gonna have so much fun next year. Jared Goff is gonna have so much fun. Moving on to the Seahawks. Geno Smith, my boy. Still ain't right back, though. Please, for the love of God, Seattle, sign him soon. I don't want him to go. Yes, he could go out and suck next year, but he won't. Moving on to the Titans. Derrick Henry. Next. Bears. Justin Fields. Justin Fields made the Bears watchable in some capacity this year when he started scrambling a lot because he don't really have receivers. He has Cole Kmet. He has Darnell Mooney on some occasion. Claypool didn't do anything. Velus Jones, he's a fumble machine on punt returns. In Montgomery, he fell off a cliff. It's Justin Fields. I don't care what anyone says. He made the Bears somehow watchable, and don't trade the number 1 pick. Get Will Anderson. Alright, the final team, the Packers. Should we go Darkness Retreat boy? Sure, I guess. I don't know. Rodgers, maybe. Could be Jair, could be... I don't know. I'll just say Rodgers because he's like... Two years ago before this year, he was the back-to-back MVP. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed, like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll see you in the next video. Go Hawks!